America's aircraft carriers will now be defended by advanced new turbojet-powered drone interceptor missiles that can loiter in the airspace around a carrier strike group to rapidly engage incoming drone swarms. And once the job's done, some of these interceptors will be able to just fly back to the ship, land, and be refueled to launch again. Now, these weapons aren't entirely new. They've already seen combat with the US Army and the US Special Operations Command. But now, these combat-proven systems are really ramping up the Navy's carrier defenses for what amounts to a real bargain. So let's dive into Raytheon's Coyote and Anduril's Roadrunner-M interceptors and how they aim to protect America's most potent form of force projection against an increasingly drone-heavy future. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Sea Power. A week or so ago, Military.com was the first to report on the addition of two new counter-drone missile systems to the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers assigned to the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group. Now, these ships already boast some of the world's most advanced surface-to-air missile systems, capable of engaging airborne threats ranging from sea-skimming cruise missiles just a few feet above the ocean's surface, all the way up to ballistic missile warheads outside the Earth's atmosphere. But this extreme level of capability also comes at an extreme cost. As we've talked about in our discussion of the Navy's Red Sea defense over the past year or so, the interceptors employed by Navy destroyers and cruisers are nothing short of pricey, with the cheapest of them, the Evolved Sea Sparrow Missile 2, or ESSM, ringing in at around $1.5 million a shot. Now, if your target's a bit further out, you might turn to the more broadly capable SM-2 interceptor at $2.5 million apiece. And in a real pinch, you might even turn to the more dynamic SM-6, a weapon that is so capable it's even been converted into America's furthest-reaching air-to-air missile in the AIM-174, and is currently the only in-service interceptor rated to take down hypersonic weapons. But that all rings in at an even tougher to swallow $4.3 million each. Now, of course, pricey as these weapons are, they were designed to take down threats that were usually even more expensive, like adversary fighters or bombers, among other things. And of course, the vessels they protect are worth billions, making their defense well worth the cost. But the advent of relatively cheap one-way attack drones has completely changed the arithmetic of these seaward battlefields, with adversaries like Iran and its many proxies launching higher volumes of much cheaper drones at far-flung targets in hopes of overwhelming their air defenses and thus allowing a bunch of weapons to get through to their targets. And while these engagements are worthy of some concern, it's even more important that we read between the lines. If Iran and its proxies, like the Houthis, can cause problems with these one-way attack drones, well, a wealthier nation with a much larger industrial base, like, say, China, could field enough of these weapons to absolutely wreak havoc on American carrier strike groups. Of course, there are few more heavily defended pockets of airspace on this planet than the patch of sky immediately surrounding an American aircraft carrier. The U.S. Navy's Carrier Strike Group 12, led by the nation's newest and most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, includes one Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser and usually 3 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, all of which boast the incredibly capable and constantly improving Aegis combat system that integrates advanced radar arrays with onboard mission systems to bring a combined 398 missile cells, capable of housing a maximum of 1,592 interceptors, all to bear in the carrier's defense. But it is worth noting that the real number of interceptors available at any given point is all but certain to be much lower than that. Now, these interceptors are also bolstered by shorter-range defenses like the Mark 45 Mod 4 5-inch guns that can be used effectively against land-based and airborne targets, and of course, the legendary 20mm Phalanx Sea Whiz. Now, this combined mass of firepower creates a kinetic hornet's nest of defensive capability for aircraft or anti-ship missiles to try to penetrate, making the job of taking down an American aircraft carrier, well, honestly, a near impossible task for most national militaries. But for nations with the resources necessary to try to plan around these systems, there is more than one way to skin that cat. No matter how advanced or capable your air defenses are, every system has what we commonly call a saturation point, or the point at which there are simply too many inbound targets for you to effectively intercept. Now, the integrated Aegis systems aboard these surface ships are said to be able to track potentially thousands of targets simultaneously, so saturation attacks on a carrier strike group would be an immensely expensive undertaking if you tried to do it in a single push. But a crafty adversary could achieve a similar outcome over an extended period of time by simply exhausting the number of interceptors available in that strike group, by launching a steady stream of low-cost one-way attack drones, forcing the US to expend dozens of multi-million-dollar interceptors on comparatively cheap drones until the strike group just runs out of weapons on hand and is forced to return to friendly ports to rearm. Now, the Navy has made big strides in recent years to rearm its warships at sea, but that capability is still pretty limited and would still require pulling out of the fight to effect that transfer. Now, over time, this extremely one-sided cost exchange ratio, or the cost of these multi-million-dollar interceptors versus the cost of the cheap drones they take down, could result in America losing a battle of financial or even industrial attrition, with defense budgets struggling to absorb the cost of replacing all these high-dollar weapons, and the American industrial base struggling to produce them in sufficient volume to restock the Navy's ships as quickly as they need it. As we've discussed in the past, the American economy, defense budgets, and industrial base are all plenty large enough to absorb relatively isolated engagements, like the one now going on over the Red Sea, even if it does come with some budgetary pain. But if the US were to find itself at war with, again, China, these cost exchange concerns would quickly become a lot more pressing. Now, one of the most common one-way attack drones employed by American adversaries today is Iran's Shahed 136, also known by its Russian name, the Garin 2. These 11-foot-long, 440-pound kamikaze drones are powered by relatively small piston engines, giving these drones a top speed of only around 115 miles per hour. That's 185 kilometers per hour. But what they lack in speed, they make up for with range, with the ability to deliver their estimated 110-pound warheads to targets as far away as 1,600 miles, or around 2,500 kilometers. Of course, these small warheads are nowhere near capable of bringing down an aircraft carrier, but in sufficient volume, these weapons could compromise enough systems on board a large warship to render it pretty useless in a fight. Now, the true cost of these systems vary wildly depending on your source. A lot of media outlets report the Shahed 136 may ring in at as little as $50,000 a drone, with some outlets even claiming as low as $20,000. But a hacker group named the Prana Network gained access to Iranian email servers back in 2024 and retrieved internal documents that show a much higher sticker price of $375,000 per weapon. But regardless of which side of this cost spectrum you believe is accurate, all of these figures are way, way lower than the $1.5 to $4.3 million the US Navy might spend on an interceptor to bring them down. And that is where Raytheon's Coyote and Anduril's Roadrunner-M interceptors come in. Now, the original Coyote AAV was developed by a firm called Advanced Ceramic Research, prior to the company being purchased by BAE Systems in 2009, and then eventually finding its way to maturing under the Raytheon, now RTX banner starting in 2015. Now, at the time, it was a small propeller-driven, expendable aircraft meant to be launched out of small canisters before deploying two small sets of rectangular wings. Now, these systems were originally envisioned as low-cost intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR assets, launching from any number of platforms before patrolling the area and relaying video or other intelligence back to ground forces. But in 2020, Raytheon's Coyote Block 2 was unveiled, which got rid of that piston-driven propeller and those deployable wings in favor of a new turbojet propulsion system and four moving control fins on the tail, giving this weapon a much more missile-like look. And in keeping with that weaponized aesthetic, these systems were no longer relegated to capturing intelligence, and now are fully armed drone hunters, stowing a roughly 4-pound blast fragmentation warhead inside their fuselage, along with a proximity fuse meant to detonate those charges as soon as these new Coyotes found their prey. Now, according to Raytheon, those small moving fins and this new air-breathing jet engine give the Coyote, quote, dogfight-type capability to close with even extremely maneuverable drone targets. Now, just how fast these Coyote interceptors can fly under turbojet power is not entirely clear, but it's been reported as between 345 to maybe 370 miles per hour by some outlets. And we also know the guidance system employed by the Coyote is accurate enough to directly impact an airborne target in testing, though in practice it wouldn't need to. Well, that 4-pound warhead may be pretty tiny compared to the 44 pounds of explosives you'll find in an AIM-120 AMRAAM. It's designed to produce a fragment field upon detonation that's more than enough to bring down a fairly large weaponized drone or airborne cruise missile. In order to maximize the efficacy of these drone interceptors without ramping up the price per missile, Raytheon paired these weapons with their surface-based Ku-band multi-mission radar dubbed CURFS, short for Ku-band radio frequency sensor. This system combines target tracks collected via multiple antennas, making it capable of spotting everything from inbound mortars to larger attack drones. In fact, Raytheon claims it has the fidelity to spot airborne targets as small as a 9mm bullet. Target tracks are transmitted to receivers on board those Coyote interceptors, guiding them into the target without the interceptor itself needing a more expensive onboard guidance system. Now, the Army has already deployed these Coyote Block 2 interceptors as a part of what they call the Low, Slow Unmanned Aircraft Integrated Defeat System, or LIDS, which includes both mobile and fixed launchers. Right now, the different components of the CURFS radar and the Coyote launch tubes are often distributed across multiple platforms or vehicles, but in the near future, the Army intends to field them all in a single 8x8 Stryker light armored vehicle. As I mentioned before, these systems have already been in combat, and according to the Army, have mounted over 170 successful intercepts of inbound drones. Now, these small interceptors are meant as a short-range defensive asset, capable of taking down incoming drones as far out as about 9.3 miles. That's around 15 kilometers. And according to reports, they can loiter around the carrier strike group for as long as 4 or 5 minutes before they take down a target. At around $100,000 each, these broadly capable drone killers ring in at around 1/15 the cost of the Navy's short-range interceptor, the Evolved Sea Sparrow 2, which again rings in at around $1.5 million each and can engage targets as far out as around 30 miles away. But the Navy's other new carrier defense weapon may have an even bigger impact on the future of warfare, at least if you ask me, because it's not only another combat-proven asset, but it's also been described in the past as the world's first reusable surface-to-air missile, and it's touted by its manufacturer, Anduril, as somewhere between a reusable missile and a full-scale autonomous aircraft. This weapon, known as the Roadrunner-M, is powered by not one, but two small air-breathing turbojet engines that produce enough combined power to launch vertically without the need for a rocket booster. Now, once airborne, these interceptors can close with a target at high subsonic speeds and use their onboard sensors and data link to assess whether or not that inbound target is actually a threat. If it is, the proximity fuse in the Roadrunner-M detonates its onboard blast fragmentation warhead to take that target down. Now, to date, Anduril has not disclosed the size of these warheads, but they do claim that it's, quote, 3 times the warhead capacity of similar offerings. Now, if we use the Coyote as that similar offering for comparison, that might mean the Roadrunner boasts a roughly 12-pound warhead, or a bit more than half the explosives carried by an AIM-9 Sidewinder. But take that figure with a whole bucket of salt. But in my opinion, what really makes the Roadrunner-M so special isn't necessarily its ability to close with and destroy inbound targets, but rather what it can do if that target isn't a threat after all. If it turns out there's nothing to intercept, the Roadrunner-M can just turn around and fly all the way back to where it was launched, and then use those powerful turbojet engines to come in for a nice controlled vertical landing, all to be refueled and used again. Now, this makes it possible to launch a large number of Roadrunner-Ms at the earliest signs of an inbound threat, knowing that you can recover any interceptors that aren't detonated after that engagement. Anduril also touts their Roadrunner-M as extremely maneuverable, making it well-suited for engaging even aerobatic drones that are designed to evade intercept. And thanks to Anduril's lengthy experience with system autonomy, they say that a single operator can supervise a large number of these weapons at once. Now, when I spoke to Anduril about this and other weapons in Denver a few months ago, they emphasized the importance of the open system software architecture in Roadrunner that allows for what they called immediate integration into just about any existing air defense radar or target acquisition system, which explains why these weapons that have, as far as we know, only seen use in clandestine operations mounted by the U.S. Special Operations Command to date could be so quickly integrated into the layered defenses of a carrier strike group. Now, specific details about the Roadrunner-M's performance are tough to come by, like its maximum range or its maximum loiter time. But Anduril says it offers, quote, 10 times the one-way effective range and is 3 times more maneuverable in G-force compared to, quote, similar offerings on the market. And again, it is tough to say what Anduril sees as a similar offering. But if we use the Coyote Block 2 as our basis for comparison again, well, it might suggest the Roadrunner-M has a range that's approaching triple digits. Now, these new interceptors, it is important to note, are not meant to serve as replacements for any of the Navy's existing surface-to-air missiles, or even its more kinetic short-range defenses like the legendary Sea Whiz. Instead, these drone-hunting missiles are meant to provide commanders with more options to assess and engage incoming threats, while also providing the strike group with a boost in magazine capacity, providing more defensive firepower without, at least it seems, sacrificing any VLS launch tubes to the job. Eventually, these new ship defenses will be further bolstered, of course, by high-energy lasers like the Navy's Helios systems that are currently in testing to add yet another significant short-range defensive capability. And of course, as we've covered on this channel recently, the US has also begun fielding the AGR-20 Falco, also known as the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System 2, or APKWS-2. These modified 70mm rockets can be launched from surface-based launchers, from fighter jets or helicopters, just to name a few, all to engage incoming drones using laser guidance for the paltry price of just about $25,000 per shot, making the AGR-20 America's lowest cost air-to-air missile by a factor of about 18, and the cheapest way to bring down a large attack drone that's currently in service, at least until more powerful lasers come online. But altogether, these new defensive layers combined to really say one thing: American aircraft carriers are just not nearly as vulnerable to drones as some might have you believe. And with that, ends this edition of Sea Power from Sandboxx News. I'm Alex Hollings. Make sure you swing by sandboxnews.com today and every day for all the latest in news, entertainment, and now merch from all around the force. If you got anything out of today's video, make sure to click like and subscribe down below, and leave me a comment so I know what I should cover next. And of course, don't forget to tap on that bell icon so you never miss a drop from Sandboxx News.